Hi everyone, welcome to another Employability Live. My name is Sam, I'm the founder of Turnheads. I'm here with Wendy, who is the founder of Skills Mansion. We join forces every Wednesday to discuss employability skills in the creative sector, and we share our own lived experiences and insights and tips. And by doing this, we hope to inspire emerging creatives trying to find their first jobs or clients within the industry. And today we are joined by Leo Young. He is a branding and packaging designer who founded his own agency during lockdown called Good Nugget. So thanks for being here, Leo. It's really good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So to kick things off, can you tell us a bit more about Good Nugget and what made you start it up?
So Good Nugget started as a side hustle, actually, and we wanted to create an agency with a difference. So my background has always been predominantly in luxury and premium branding and packaging. And for me, I wanted to create something that put people and environment first. So as an agency, we always work with clients that really think about social and environmental impact. And our model as an agency as well is not to think about ourselves. And if we are thinking about the impact in the environment and people, then what we wanted to do was really put that to the test as well. So that's why we use our time and profits to give back to the creator community, which is why we've launched our own mentoring program to support young people from low socioeconomic backgrounds. We run talks and workshops to all give insight into the creator community. So we call ourselves an agency/social enterprise.
Fantastic. And I have to vouch for your mentoring scheme because I am a mentor at the moment. It's going great. So today we wanted to talk about kind of how you take a project from A to B. Once you get the brief, how do you make it a reality? So I guess if you could start off by maybe like talking us through the basic kind of process that you personally go through when you get a brief from a client.
Cool. So everything does start with a brief, a client brief. So this is where your client comes to you with something that they want to solve, or a problem, you can call it. So they may present or send something to you, and generally this is picked up by a creative and somebody from the accounts team. So we always generally talk this through with the client. So they will talk you through kind of what they're thinking about and what they want your help with. So this is called the client brief. And we always use this session to ask as many questions as possible, kind of get your understanding of what the brief is. If there's nothing you don't understand, make sure you ask these questions now. And the client brief is the brief that you have between the client. Is almost like your ironclad contract. This is what you set out to do from the very start. So use this initial meeting, the client, like finding out the brief and finding out the problem or solution that they're looking for, to kind of find exactly what you can help them with. So that's the first initial meeting, kind of picking up the client brief. And then we also always have a chat kind of after this, an internal chat with the team about how we would approach this and the stages involved with that. So from that, we would have an internal chat, and then we'll go back with sort of a proposal just to make sure that everything that we're thinking of is aligned with the client. So how we're going to handle the project, what we're going to tackle. So almost a stage-by-stage process. And most importantly, how much it's going to cost them. One thing that we have kind of learned as well was that it's always good to ask this upfront at sort of the client briefing when they come to you. Just go, do you have a budget in mind? Do you have timings in mind? And I think that's always good to get an idea, because we're always one for kind of promoting yourselves and not underselling yourself, and kind of know your worth as well. So I think when you go to pick up the brief, at the end of the kind of chat, it's always good to quickly say, do you have a budget in mind? And then do you have some timings? Those are things that can always help give you a guideline on what you can kind of offer them as well. So after that, so we put a proposal, and this is almost just an interaction between you and your client. So the client comes to you with a brief, they tell you what they want, and then you tell them how you're going to solve it and what you're going to do. So this is almost like your mutual agreement. So you go from there, and the client goes, okay, price approved, job approved, stages approved. Let's go. Let's kick this off. What happens? So generally, depending on the project, we kind of go through a stage of kind of looking at the project of how we kind of kick this off, and we kind of brief the team. So if there's more people involved, such as there could be designers, there could be copywriters, there could be strategists, there could be so many people involved in sort of the project, depending on what it could be. So we have a kickoff meeting. If it's just generally creative concepts, then we'll brief the designers. And then again, this is an opportunity for you to almost have a kickstart of a brainstorm as well, for the designers to ask any questions that they have, and almost just set out the scene and what you're going to do. So if it's just 2 days initial brainstorming, coming up with creative territories or kind of coming up with very initial things, this is what you do. You can kind of set out and say, right, let's kick off this project and then we'll meet back up in 2 days. Generally, we do kind of check in with people a little bit more, but it's good kind of just to be able to get your head into a brief and just have, I always find alone time is always good. I'm always about collaboration, but I do like to get my head down and kind of think about a brief on my own for at least half a day and kind of get your thoughts down yourself. I always start with doing sort of a creative brainstorm. So I like drawing lots of little spider diagrams and just kind of go quite wild. So I kind of always think about a brief that the client thinks they know what they want, but us as creatives is to almost take them on a journey on what they would like to do. So you almost have your safest concepts of what they might be expecting. Then you want to take them on a journey. You want to, as creators, I guess for me, I always really want to push the boundary. So make sure that you have a range of concepts going from the safest to almost the most revolutionary. And that is what you do as a creative team. You're not working on this on your own. You have a creative director, you have your client director, you have like other designers working on this, and this is a collaborative process. Nothing is created on your own. And I think that's the most important thing, is that you may have an idea and it can only be made better by other people. And I think that's the beauty of the creative process, is that, you know, your account manager's kind of opinion is just as important as a creator's opinion. So we all work together to get the best outcome that we can. So that's almost when you get straight into diving into design. Then we kind of get to a place where we're happy with the concept, and that's where we put the presentation together. Everybody will come together to think about how we present this to the client. The presentation is almost quite key, because it's almost, you've been in this project for about 2 weeks to say. What you don't understand is that you need to take your client on the journey that you've almost been on. So almost from your initial brainstorm on how you got your idea, what the idea means, through to the final design in itself. And this presentation is almost like a storybook. You take them on kind of the journey from start to finish that you have been on internally, but almost in a way that's easy to digest for your client. So you present to the client, think everything's gone amazing, you get amazing feedback. That might not always happen. They might come back with and think, actually not quite what I was looking for. So what happens is that after you present it, the client will give some feedback. It's always good. I always say to client, you know, you don't have to answer anything now. It's best to take it away, absorb it, and then come back to us with your feedback. Clients sometimes might send you feedback in an email, and then we take it internally and we look at the feedback, and then we send them an email saying that we would like to chat it through. So the whole point of this feedback is to kind of develop the concept in itself. So feedback can go in many ways. Obviously, the best way is that they've kind of loved the designs and it's absolutely done. But then that's very much so not the case. There's actually lots of mini stages before you get to a finalization of a design. So I think that then what happens is that we all attend the meeting. So maybe the creative director and the account director, you go to the meeting, you talk to the client. And the thing about feedback is that you always need to go back to the brief and think about what the objective is. Then I think to discuss what they want to achieve, what they like or don't like, and how they would like to develop it. No kind of solutions are kind of made in this kind of meeting. It literally is just to set out the feedback and what they think about the creative that you have presented to them. So that's kind of the in the middle bit. And you kind of might get a few phases of this where it's a bit of back and forth, where you get feedback from clients, you take the feedback, the team kind of absorbs it, and then it's briefed back to the team again. So there might be about 4 stages of this, even before you get to a final piece of design. And then what happens when you get to the final piece of design? You've created this beautiful piece of work, let's call it a logo, but how do you make it real? It's almost this finalization stage. So in finalization, you have to make something work for whether it's your computer screen or printable for a poster. So this is where your production and artwork team comes to life. So you have your creators, and we work very closely with sort of people who make everything look beautiful, or work kind of a realization team really. So make sure that it actually prints or it looks well on your screen. So you've got that beautiful logo, but we want to make sure that it looks the same each time. So whether it's printed, it's the same color, or whether it's on screen, it looks right. So that's what our artwork team does. And these people make sure that everything can be printed beautifully. And on this, there could be, for instance, if you're printing a brochure, then you might go on, make a mock-up, you might do a test run, make sure the colors look great, and just make sure that everything that you want it to look like looks like how it should. Because when you're creating something as a concept, you have this in your mind that it's all going to look beautiful, and then you kind of come to it and they go, actually, you've only got 4 colors to print. We probably would know this before, but sometimes it can happen and go, actually, we can only afford 4 colors instead of 5. This is kind of what shouldn't happen, but sometimes it might. And then this is where the artwork team can help you kind of think about how to make this kind of real, and we kind of produce it then. So you've got your kind of logo, brochure, whatever, then it goes to artwork, and then you kind of take it to the printers and production. So this is kind of how it really does become real. And then there's an opportunity to, if you can go on a print run, or whether if there's photography involved, that you could go on a photo shoot for, whether if it's a food magazine shoot. So you could be working and art directing on a shoot for food within this kind of brochure that you're creating. So everything that you put together in your concept, that's all like these found pieces of imagery, this is where it starts to come to life. So whether it's photography, text, print, the real paper, the thickness of the paper, this is where you really start to put this to life and get to see it come to life for real. Mm-hmm. And then it becomes sort of this final thing where you kind of goes on sort of a press run, and then you see the final product. I think that generally from start to finish, I think that is generally how a project can kind of run. And I've given you a little bit of insight into the different teams that could be involved in the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. That was brilliant. And yeah, I think going off of what you kind of explained as well, it kind of really stood out to me that the proposal that you could almost brief back to the client once they've given you their brief, you almost break it into chunks and send it back to them with all the costs and the way that you're going to actually kind of approach the project is super important, because it sounds like maybe you can go to a bit more detail of the other kind of stakeholders that you kind of work with along the way, but if you are doing concepts that involve illustration or involve photography or a specific kind of print finish or embossing or something like that, that's obviously something you need to factor in at that proposal stage, isn't it, to get sign off. So how do you kind of work with those other stakeholders along the way? Can you maybe name a few?
The proposal is actually quite an interesting part, because you almost have to map out the whole project even before you start it. And you've got to make sure that, for instance, an illustrator or a photographer, or you want a specialist typographer, you need to take these into account and almost budget for that as well. Because even something, as we spoke about photography, there's stock photography and there's licensing that comes into play. So we can't just take something off Google Images and then put it onto a poster. Somebody else owns that. And if you're going to print it, then they're going to come after you and ask you for however much from using their image. So what happens is that when you get the client brief, you take your brief away, and then you work together with either the creative director, design director, or accounts team to put this proposal and outline the project from start to finish. And you literally have to map it out on how you will tackle this from the beginning to the end, and then taking in consideration sort of the bit in between that I spoke about the number of amends. So in your proposal, you can go, we allow for 3 rounds of amends. The client might come back and they go, still not right, we need another round of amend. Unfortunately, you have to have that difficult conversation with the client and go, we only really allow for 3 amends. We'll give you 1 for free, but we're actually on round amend number 7. So make sure you kind of allow for all these bits. And I think it's only within experience that and working on the same type of project, that you understand sort of the flow of it. And it just practice makes perfect, really. We're still learning, and always something comes up that you don't expect, which is why it's so important that when you do a proposal, to kind of think, actually, let's allow maybe a little bit of padding that kind of gives us enough time or enough budget to kind of allow that something might happen. And it generally does, because projects don't really run smoothly. No. Not because it's not your fault, but I think that everything is so hard to look at something without it having it visually in front of you. And then when you start to see it unfold, people see things very differently, and almost the brief might start to evolve. The objective might still be the same, but they might start adding different things on that you might not have foreseen, or the client might not have foreseen. So it's not a bad thing, but it's almost that the journey just changes and evolves throughout the process.
Yeah. But it's a good point to make, isn't it? I think that you need to have those caveats in there, don't you? And it's almost like it's kind of remembering as well that sometimes you're breaking this project down for the people that brief you on it might not necessarily be creative people. So they might not necessarily understand the creative process kind of down to the minutiae. So, you know, being able to say, you know, if you use stock photography, you're looking at an extra budget of roughly this to this. If you want custom photography, it's, you know, you're going to need around this sort of much, and just kind of that element of guidance maybe that comes into some briefs, depending on how practiced they are at kind of briefing agencies in.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point, because a lot of the people that you're talking to, with some of them might have a lot of experience and will know what a creative proposal will look like. But essentially, sometimes you might be working with someone who doesn't even know, as we said, like that you have to license for photography, or you need to buy a certain typeface that you're using before you can even release it. For instance, in artwork, for instance, in the creative industry, you're not allowed to send fonts. So everything's got to be outlined. You personally have to own the font to license it, to use it. So if you've used something for the client, then they might go, oh, but we don't, if we want to use it again, we don't have that font. They will have to then buy the license for that. So it just all in experience is kind of, and it is about educating your client to know, actually, this is the full breadth of actually making what you want a real thing.
Yeah, definitely. Wendy, did you want to jump in with some questions as well?
Yeah, mine is kind of a little bit different. I think I'm going to spin it round to the people who are part of the project, taking it through to the deliverable thing that you are, you're creating. I was thinking about if you have entry-level talent coming in, it's their first job, they're going to be part of this project. And I've had a lot of students who are like, oh, I wonder what it will be like to work on a project if I'm starting off in a career in design. What aspects would I be doing? What should I expect? So in terms of a project brief, and you have new talent come in and it's their first sort of month or first 3 months, and they are getting involved in a project brief, what aspects of it would they be taking on, or what areas would they look at? Because it all sounds so interesting from beginning to end, but we do appreciate projects do rely on a lot of people collaborating to bring it all together, and everyone has a part to play. So what part would a new employee who's new to the industry coming in, joining into a project brief, what sort of experience would they expect to be getting through that journey?
Cool. I think that's a really, really good question, actually. And at Good Nugget, as I said, I think our ethos is always about putting people first. So the first thing to do is understand the level of the talent, and also not to overwhelm them with too much, and understand expectations. And I always say, if you're going to look after and nurture talent, it's about communication and letting them know what you want them to do and what they need to do. So for instance, say if it is a creative job and it's creating logos, for instance, I would always think the easiest thing to give entry-level talent or junior is almost just the creative work. Almost just go crazy with ideas. Don't worry about execution. Don't worry about getting things on computers. Do what you do best and come up with ideas. And ideas can be anything from a written down concept on a spider diagram, or something that you found and that you're inspired by. So this is what we want from kind of junior talent, is for them to bring fresh thinking. Don't worry about building the presentation. Don't worry about what it's going to look like later. I want to see some really exciting thoughts on where you think this brief can go. So I would personally like to see a range of concepts as well. Like, I want to know, I get more excited about the crazy ideas and really pushing it. And they're the things that I want to see. Stuff that I haven't seen before is a good idea for me. Stuff that I go, oh my God, that's an amazing idea. Or when you're all in a room and you're presenting all your work and a creative puts something down, you go, oh, I wish I thought of that idea. So as a junior creative, it's all about ideas, and it's not about loads and loads of ideas. It's about coming up with sort of as many relevant ideas as you can. I never say there's a bad idea. It's just not right for the project.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, because I know people do, come with a set of thought processes. I'm getting a new job. I wonder what part I'll be doing. They've heard bits and pieces of where they can chip in, but it's really, great that you said come with your ideas. And I think when they start exercising their ideas and bringing them out, that builds their confidence, and they're able to take on other aspects of the project. But yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, I think for me, the most important part is to grow and empower junior talent. So yes, it is about the ideas, but then also you're there to learn and understand the whole process. So get involved with other bits, ask if you can help with other things, or start looking at what other people are doing, and that's how you can learn the most. You may be involved in stuff that may not be as exciting, but if there was a junior on the job, I'd always like to give them the most creative part, the kind of bit that's the easiest. I would say you want to be a designer, design.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's a good thing to end on there. If you want to be a designer, design. Thank you so much, Leo. I think that's really, really great insight. And hopefully it's helped people watching. Please do check out Skills Mansion, Good Nugget, and Turnheads. We're all here trying to help you guys get your foot in the door. So if you'd like us to do any particular chats on specific subject, please do leave a comment below. Or if you'd like to be a guest as well and talk about your journey so far, we'd love to have you. So please do get in contact. And until then, we shall see you on the next Employability Live on Wednesday. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.